Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to the first anniversary compilation episode of Full Circle, the podcast. Let's take a look at the headlines we've squeezed and a year of what happened. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and Charles' mad editing skills.
I'm your host, Charles Tyson Jr.
And I'm your host, Martha Madrigal. Welcome to a celebration of 1 year at the Full Circle table.
Hi, baby.
Hey.
We did it.
We did it. We did a whole year.
We did.
And then you sat down and, well, tell them what you decided to do.
I decided to put together a little highlight reel, or, as a fan of 80s sitcoms like The Golden Girls, a clip show.
A clip show. So that's what we're doing with the next couple of hours. Is this, now are we going to hear a clip from each and every show?
Yes.
Okay, then.
Yes.
We should probably get to it because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, we said a lot of things.
Well, what did we do? 64 episodes?
63? Well, 62 actual episodes. I didn't include, guest spots and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And previews and stuff. So, 62.
So, sit back with your beverage of choice. And, let's visit the last year. And we will be back next week with the first episode of Season 2.
Enjoy.
Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to Full Circle, a weekly podcast where we squeeze a few headlines through our decidedly queer lens and see what happens. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the tears of suddenly feeling vulnerable white cishet men across America.
I am your host, Charles Tyson Jr.
And I'm your other host, Martha Madrigal. Welcome to the Full Circle table. We were having, I think it was while we were having our first barbecue here. We moved back to New Jersey in the house where I grew up, and we put a patio in, and we had a whole bunch of queer people here July 3rd.
Right.
And we were looking from the patio, we were looking up at the wooden steps that go up and down. And I said it just reminded me so much of Barbary Lane. And
in that whimsical, lovely way.
Right. And I don't know if that was the moment or if that was the combination of moments, because, I cook a lot and I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I've done some vegan cooking videos and stuff like that. We try to eat plant-based as often as possible. And you said, I know you coined the phrase. You coined the name and said that I was some combination of Martha Stewart and Anna Madrigal, who is the central character in Tales of the City, which takes place at Barbary Lane.
Yes.
So it kind of stuck, and it's kind of fun, and I thought it was so endearing, and I've been called so much worse. So I started writing also, beyond just podcasting, as Martha Madrigal. So I'm searchable.
Yes.
And I try to publish an essay every weekday, and so far great feedback. So we'll see.
You shortened the name from what I actually gave you, which was Martha fucking Madrigal.
So Martha fucking Madrigal,
good job.
which I'll use sometimes. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the tenacity of exhausted queers with a lot to say. The state of New Jersey signed into law on February the 2nd that the teaching of LGBTQ plus history, K through 12, in all New Jersey public schools is mandatory. It is mandatory that it be taught alongside American history and history in general.
Cool is that?
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing. The representation, because all it says, really, is we exist.
Right.
We literally exist. And, if you're going to talk about Alan Turing and his amazing contributions, continue with the next sentence and talk about how the man was essentially tortured unto death.
Exactly.
Like, let's tell the whole story.
And why that was.
Not only did he do all that, but he did it uphill. With people running behind him with torches. And I think it's, we need to know the fullness of these stories. They're important. And it would mean, I can't imagine what it would have meant to me as a child to learn about this. Because, I was educated in an era where we didn't talk about queer folks. We didn't talk about, any of this.
Right.
Which is what they want to get back to. And no.
Right.
No. I love this for a lot of reasons. I want to so we just moved back to New Jersey. It's sort of been a year, but it's been an odd year. But since May, we've been here. And I've returned to the scene of the crime. It's, one of the reasons we called this podcast Full Circle is because I certainly have come full circle back to where I was born, back to where I was raised, back to the glorious femme child I was before the world got a hold of, just all of it. And, that and the friend who said, you two have both been so individually queer. You seem to have arrived back as a heterosexual couple. And I'm like, loosely.
Right.
Yeah.
In the most technical of
in
terms,
a really
I
queer
guess
sense
that's
of the
right.
word. Yeah, sure. So we've come full circle. Plus, I just like the way it sounds. But, what would that have meant? And so we are in this unique position back in the school district where my education was interrupted, and we're taxpayers who can raise our hands and ask questions, in a friendly manner. But I do want to find out how this is going to play out. But I want to know as much as I can first. So I know that there were pilot programs, one in Haddon Heights, New Jersey, which is South Jersey, and one, I'm going to forget where, maybe it was Englewood Cliffs, but in North Jersey. So, how those came to be, there are teachers involved, of course. There is a state legislator who obviously sponsored the bill initially, and an amazing Central New Jersey organization who really has run point on it. So there's a lot for me to read and to learn, and folks I want to reach out to and talk with. But I'm going to bring this up frequently because it really does affect us, and because, I always want to focus on, as we look at whatever chicanery is happening today, I want to look at the good stuff that's happening too,
right?
Because it's also happening alongside of it, and obviously the truth is we have a blue state legislature, which is why New Jersey and California are the only two states to have this law.
Right.
But, this is a critical time because it's going to be an example for other places. And, hopefully we bring this, we as a nation, bring this kind of legislation to the fore, find out no one dies from it. People actually live because of it and benefit from it. And, we can eventually steer the conversation by seeing that these laws can be really helpful as opposed to the bullshit laws that are being proposed around this nation.
Indeed.
By Republicans.
Well, what intrigues me about this is what that means is that you can have discussions about James Baldwin and Audre Lorde and Lorraine Hansberry and Alice Walker, and they are no longer just brought up for Black history. They are now, if you teach them as part of LGBTQ history, and that is under the umbrella of just teaching history, then maybe we don't need to only talk about Black figures at all just during February. Wouldn't that be amazing?
And I really do. In the fullness of time, I hope that is where we get, because this is our collective history.
Exactly.
That's all we're talking about.
And always has
But
been.
much of it was excluded or rewritten. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and our quiet desperation for paid advertising.
Mr. Tucker Carlson. he made a point of saying that he wants to see Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's LSAT scores.
Of course he does.
To prove that a black woman is a, quote, top legal mind.
Mm-hmm. Show us your papers.
Show us your papers. Yeah. Show us your birth certificate. That's exactly what that sounds like.
Well, it is. It's the same song.
I just want to point out just a few points about the life and career of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's in government from Harvard. Then she went to Harvard Law School, where she was the supervising editor of the Harvard Law Review.
Yep.
She graduated cum laude with her JD from Harvard, her law degree. Then she worked in private practice for 3 years. Then she was assistant special counsel to the United States Sentencing Commission. Then for 2 years, she was an assistant federal public defender in D.C., handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. Then she was nominated to become the vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission by President Barack Obama, and then nominated again by President Obama to serve as the judge for the U.S. District Court for D.C. Now, let's look at Tucker Carlson's credentials. He got a bachelor's in history from some school.
Trinity College.
Yeah, that. Not in journalism or broadcasting. Definitely not law. I'm guessing not black history or women's history.
I thought it was history.
No, he got a degree in history, but I bet you it wasn't black history or women's history.
I'm sure it was not.
And a notable thing, in his college yearbook, he was listed as a member of the Dan White Society.
What's that?
It was a society of appreciation for Dan White, who... Would you like to mention who that is and his claim to fame?
Oh, I didn't know there was a society. Dear God.
Uh-huh.
Dan White murdered Harvey Milk.
Yeah, that. And I don't know how much the society harps on that particular fact. I'm just saying that that's an interesting little fact.
He also murdered the mayor. The Mayor Moscone, but
yes.
Yeah, he murdered Harvey Milk.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a society for the dude that murdered Harvey Milk.
Yeah. And he was a member.
Makes perfect sense.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
he tried to join the CIA, was denied. Then he decided to pursue a career in journalism because his father encouraged him, and he basically said, they'll take anybody.
Wow.
Which, it appears to be true, because we know several journalists who have integrity and intelligence and are thorough with fact checking. And then we also know motherfuckers like him. Mm-hmm. So, and the longest he's even held the job has been at Fox News. So all this to say, who the fuck is you to question whether or not a nominee for the Supreme Court is a legal mind?
I want to see his SAT scores.
Exactly. Would he even know how to interpret her LSAT scores if somebody even fucking gave them to him?
Well, of course not. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the value in maintaining a handy list of things that are none of your business.
So today I want to talk about Mary Fields, aka Stagecoach Mary. So, Stagecoach Mary Fields, she was the first black woman to deliver for the U.S. Postal Service. She was a former slave, and she lived in a nunnery.
Much like Maria in The Sound of Music.
After the Civil War, she worked as a groundskeeper in a convent. And she was a little bit too rough and tumble for the nuns. She smoked and she cussed.
So now she's Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act. Keep going.
Well,
who was raised by a TV? Who was?
Mother Superior.
Martha was.
Mother Superior, like many nuns in many institutions, encouraged Mary to grow elsewhere. And she donated a stagecoach to Mary so that she could seek her fortune. And so she got herself a contract with the U.S. Postal Service. And because of her personality and the gun she kept on her hip, she was able to safely forge herself a path in in Montana for a postal route. In Cascade, Montana, she became something of a local mythic figure. She was an interesting little figure there. And if you want to learn more about Stagecoach Mary, there's a book called Deliverance, Mary Fields, first African-American woman star route mail carrier in the United States, a Montana history.
That's fun.
That is fun. And so now, even if it's bills, I'm going to think of her when we get our mail.
Okay. Okay. There's like that cute white guy that delivers our mail, but it's okay. It's all good. Remember it.
I will think different things about Mary.
Remember his replacement. Remember remember the snack that filled in for a while.
Yes, I remember that we had our window open when we made comment on, I believe, his thickness.
It's quiet here, and we don't always realize how quiet. So we were just having this conversation. He heard every word. His mail truck was parked at the end of the sidewalk, and he heard every word. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he felt good about himself when he left.
Right. Even though we were being heavily objectifying that poor person.
We really were. We really were. It was not our best day.
But we meant what we said.
Yeah. Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the wisdom of staying in your own lane.
One little tidbit that came across my desk. I love saying came across my desk because it sounds like I have.
Yeah, you know your desk is like piled up with boxes and shit, but okay.
But
my desk.
Everyone knows me knows what a huge Prince fan.
Me too.
I am.
Yeah, me too. It's one of our shared interests.
Yes. And so it turns out that Prince's estate will be releasing the Lost Camille album.
Okay.
36 years after Prince made it. Camille was the female or feminine alter ego of Prince that he inhabited for a little while and did a bunch of songs in this like hyper like feminized voice. And a lot of the songs that are going to end up on the album have already appeared in other places, like in the Sign of the Times album, like If I Was Your Girlfriend. And,
oh, okay.
Yes, and Housequake. Now, I listened to If I Was Your Girlfriend a little while ago. I was on the train, and I was just listening to it. And I was listening to it.
It's a great song.
It really is. From the point of view of, like, Prince being Camille. And I listened to, like, the little background vocals that he did towards the end of the song, and I heard a lot of things for the first time. That shit is nasty. It's so Camille is nasty. Which means that I will make sure that I get the album as soon as it drops next week.
You've listened to Darling Nikki, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's nastier than that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't wait.
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and Mama's Last Nerve. They assert we are a threat to society itself. And that's why I say, and I mean, the real fight is that we're real. That we're real.
Right.
Because that's their argument, that we're not even real. And so that makes us not human. And that makes, that this is, we're protecting people from us. Our lives are by and large not a hell of a lot different than yours. Not at all. My gay agenda wants dinner every fucking night.
That would be me.
Yeah. We clean the bathroom. We clean the house. We're having a little Oscar get together. Like the same. Ours is more fabulous than yours, probably. Right. But point remains, we gather with friends. We do the stuff we do.
Can't help that.
We had a barbecue this summer with a couple of folks less familiar with our community included, and their takeaway was they were a little surprised that it was just like so much fun and everybody was so happy and pleasant to be around. And it was like,
what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
What did you, right? And, you know, we have a queer neighbor and who just said, what do they think we do at a barbecue anyway? And I was like,
what do they think we do with the hot dogs?
Yeah, did they think we were going to like sacrifice the children and call a mass orgy? Like, what did they think it was going to be? And I'm like, I can't tell you what they
Not
thought.
before Labor Day.
I can tell you that they left having had a really good time. And you know, that's why that's so important. Welcome to a special edition of Full Circle, the podcast. We're going to talk about the Oscars.
I mean, maybe it's just me, but you know, I don't understand, and I'm appalled at the
Thank
behavior.
God Don Rickles isn't still alive, because I guess he'd have shot him.
We know, thank you.
I mean,
we know a lot of stand-up comedians who now are like, oh shit, there's been a precedent. Someone doesn't like what we do. Heckling is over now. They can just come up and slap the shit out of us, or worse.
Yeah, and don't think it won't happen.
Right.
Because you are Will Smith and you are an example to a lot of people. I mean, and you know, the way I feel about that is the way I feel about Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is a brilliant comedian. Mm-hmm. He is.
Yeah.
Who needs to stay in his own goddamn lane. You know, talk about keep trans people the fuck out of your mouth.
Right.
Just keep us out.
That's doing harm.
Yeah, it is doing harm. And it has done harm. And the notion that it doesn't is just more of the way that we are dismissed. But, you know, it's a legitimate point to say, you know, now if you don't like comedy, you're justified.
Right.
And I have seen, you know, black women that I deeply respect who are well educated completely defend that behavior. Like, you know, much the same vein that Tiffany Haddish did. And, you know, the thing that stunned me, Will Smith was laughing until he caught Jada's face. Mm-hmm. And I felt like he looked at her face and went, oh shit, Jaden is having a friend spend the night, and I better do something now. I got this. Please don't cheat on me again.
Charles?
Like, whatever. Because that I did hear about. That she was so very public about, mm-hmm. you know, that I'm aware of. And,
right.
And that's almost what I felt like I had better do something. But the minute he got up, he made it about him. Mm-hmm. It was no longer about her.
Right.
It wasn't. It was not. It was about him. And I, you know, I just wrote a piece. I didn't know how to process this until I read what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said about the whole issue, which it's a really good piece mm-hmm. that's floating around. Maybe we can provide a link to it. But, you know, it broke it down and I was like, yeah, this was just bad behavior.
Period.
I've lived through this at a family event mm-hmm. where somebody took a shit all over Thanksgiving.
Right.
Didn't care about anybody, including the cooks, when they just went off because they had a perceived threat that they just couldn't let fly.
Right.
I was like, take yourself for a walk. Calm down.
Right.
Whatever, but don't ruin everybody's day. And these people arrived as multimillionaires and they left as multimillionaires. And this episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and making cisheads nervous.
A question that has been on my mind for the better part of a year has been answered. What were they going to do with Elliot Page's character, Vanya, on the Umbrella Academy?
They're doing what I was hoping they would do.
Since Elliot came out as trans. They're doing the simplest solution, which I was actually hoping they were doing. So Elliot Page, for 2 seasons, played the character of Vanya Hargreaves. And starting in season 3, he will be playing Victor Hargreaves. Period. Point blank.
There we go.
It's the simplest solution.
There we go.
But it's so cool. And, you know, the character, other than that, doesn't need to change.
I'm going to say stay out of the comments section on this one, children.
Oh, my God. Mm-hmm. The nerds are so fucking toxic. Sometimes it makes my dick itch. Like,
I'll scratch it later.
Everyone's like, wondering how they're going to introduce the change in the storyline, and are they going to make it plausible, and are they going to make it fit the story. So for those of you that don't know, Umbrella Academy is about a family of kids who have superpowers, basically. And
Yeah, so this is all fiction.
right. And let's see, they have a humanoid chimpanzee who was like, who lived in the house, and their mother was a robot. And there's a character who was like a talking goldfish in a bowl on top of a man's body. But just having a character who is trans be trans is too far-fetched. That's where we draw the line. That's where we're like, I can't figure out how that would work. Can we like grow the fuck up?
No. No. Some of them refuse.
Grow the fuck up and watch your superhero show.
This episode is brought to you by Hot Tea, Mucinex, and ibuprofen.
And Oreo shared the video on Twitter with the tweet, "Coming out doesn't happen just once. It's a journey that needs love and courage every step of the way. Share our new film and let someone know that you're their #lifelong ally."
Great.
Sounds lovely, right?
I think so.
Well, of course, the response is people saying, you should just stick to cookies. I'm never buying Oreo again.
Then don't.
Exactly. I'm sure they'll survive without you. There was even like some dude tried to start a campaign to get everyone to switch over to Hydrox.
Do it. They're not as good, but do it.
Right.
Do it.
So then we have Ben Shapiro, who is just so easy to rankle.
Yeah, he really is.
So
he's a delicate little guy.
He really is. He tweeted, "Your cookie must affirm your sexual lifestyle."
That is so offensive.
You know, there's so many things wrong with that. And the best part about that is Alice Wu, who directed the commercial, she replied, "I still can't get over that I got to do something with Oreo that pissed off Ben Shapiro. What a delightful day this is."
Nice. I love it. Good for her.
It's like first M&Ms and now Oreos. He just can't walk down the snack aisle without being threatened with the wokeness. All I know is now I want an Oreo.
Right.
You know? Because Oreos ain't never done nothing to me. People have called me Oreo, and that was a little hurtful, but that's another conversation.
Please welcome Allison Church to the Full Circle table. Hey, Allison.
Hey, glad to be here.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
The inspiration of this for the novel itself came from, I was actually going to just do a historical book about the Titanic. And I came across this 1922 newspaper article that was done by The Sun before it went National Enquirer.
Right.
They claimed that the Titanic's sinking did not happen because of an iceberg. It happened because of a cursed mummy case that was in the cargo hold going to the New York Museum of Natural History. And that intrigued me.
And you
intrigued me. And I went, yeah, and because I've always loved the Hammer film, Amicus film, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee type monster stories.
Yes.
And I figured, what if we had on board a retired Scotland Yard investigator who had one time been associated with the investigation in the Jack the Ripper killings?
Yes.
Be called on by the captain or the purser to investigate a series of murders until they reached New York. At first, I was just going to have it be like a Jack the Ripper type person. And then I'm thinking, after I read that newspaper article, I said, the Mummy movie with Christopher Lee in it scared the gajeebies out of me when I was a kid. And I think it would do the same thing for people reading the book. But I wanted to make it a female mummy because there's not that many movies where the mummy was a woman.
Right.
True.
And I appreciated, when you initially told me the premise of the book, that it was a mummy. The mummy has always been one of my least favorite monsters. It's like, okay, fine, whatever.
You rank them?
But this was the first time that it was actually a frightening character for me.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the perpetual trans exhaustion that is the American Republican Party. Season 2 of Russian Doll, what the fuck was that? I still don't know. It went in so many directions at once. I couldn't land on a thing.
They tried.
I tried hard. It felt like it tried to be really, really deep, and it lost me entirely.
I love everyone involved.
Yeah,
the first season was so good.
The first season really was good, and it was fun. It was fun trying to follow along. It really was. It was interesting. It was something new. The second season I found tedious as fuck, and my life is too difficult to be entertained by that. And I watched all the way to the end, just hoping for something that I could. There was no redemption.
That was me.
There was no redemption.
The ending's going to make it worth it. The ending's going to buy it back.
It did not.
No.
It did not.
No.
It's like, you're fucking the wrong person and you keep doing it. And all you wind up with at the end is sore and full of regret.
And sticky.
That.
Sore, sticky, and full of regret.
I knew this was probably a gamble like one episode in, but by the time we got to the last one, I was just, I took myself to the shower.
You did?
I did. I had to. I did. Literally, I did. Yeah, I was like, I need a shower now. I need a shower. I need to do something productive because I just lost all of those hours that I will never get back. I washed it off. I was like, oh, but the angst, the Natasha Lyonne has that thing, or Leone.
I've been saying Leon.
I like her a lot. She has that sort of self-effacing, smart ass, wizened, self-effacing, but self-aware thing that I loved in Orange is the New Black. And I appreciated in season 1 and I came to despise in season 2. I was like,
my God.
we're not going anywhere.
I was getting so tired of that whole
I'm not here.
What do I just wait.
I'm not here with her anymore, and I hate that. Like I hate that's why I took a shower, because I want to be. I want to be. Yeah. And if
you don't complete a fucking sentence.
It is an honor to welcome this legendary funny man to our table. Bruce Valanche, welcome to the Full Circle.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Hello, Jersey. I'm from Jersey,
I know. Yeah. I fell in love at the time with Bette Midler. I had that cassette tape with the Sophie Tucker jokes on it. That I had that.
Live at last.
I played it and I played it and I played it.
Mm-hmm.
And, the question I have is, how many of those jokes were Sophie Tucker's? Were any of them?
Probably. I mean, they were Sophie Tucker in her, I was going to say in her prime, but they were earlier Sophie Tucker.
Okay.
By the time I saw her when I was a kid, it was toward the end of her life, and she was a grande dame.
Yes.
And she was risque, but she didn't do those jokes. She did a lot of risque kind of songs. But back in the day, she did jokes similar to that, but they were in her voice, and a lot of them. I mean, I collected. Red Fox gave me a few of them, and Henny Youngman gave me one, and then I made a lot of them up, and and harvested them for various people. They were the kind of jokes that they had hair on them already. I mean, the challenge there was because Bette didn't want to swear or be terribly graphic. Mm-hmm. So we had to pass this sort of test where it was about old people having sex most of the time.
Right.
And but we had to do it. We had to kind of go into it obliquely, which sounds already like a joke. I will say this always strikes me as funny. When I forget, maybe 10 years ago, when Boardwalk Empire was on HBO, it was set in Atlantic City in the 1920s.
Right.
And I was watching it one night, and he goes off the boardwalk, and there's a marquee for a club, and it says Sophie Tucker tonight. And he goes in, and there was an actress who I knew, and she's doing Sophie Tucker, and she's telling jokes that I wrote for Bette Midler in 1973.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this is what they think Sophie Tucker was like. And as I'm thinking this, the phone rings. It's Beth, and she says, "Can we get money for this?"
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and finding your place in the sun, even on a rainy day.
I've been looking around lately since the news came out, and the conversation has been that Elon wants to bring, quote, free speech back to the platform. Now, on the surface, that sounds good, but I think he's trying to talk about the fact that Twitter has been adamant about throttling problematic language.
Mm-hmm.
It goes a little too far if you ask me, but I'm fine that you can't just freely throw around the N-word and the F-word and threaten people. And I'm okay with that, to a certain degree. And I feel like he's going to do away with all of the Twitter guidelines.
So when Elon Musk says, wow, this is about free speech, it seems to me that it's about free speech of straight white men.
Right. My overall point is I can definitely see Elon Musk, just doing away with all the guidelines under the auspice of bringing free speech.
Is he going to bring Trump back?
That was another question.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to lift Trump's ban from Twitter? And, we use Twitter a lot. I've become very chummy with the indie podcaster community on Twitter.
Okay.
We've made a lot of good relationships with other podcasters via Twitter. And I like to promote our show on Twitter. I don't know whether or not I'll stick around on Twitter if everything is lifted. If Trump is back, I don't know if I can deal.
Well, I guess we'll see, but I think it's like any other corner of social media. I mean, you find what you're looking for and you can pretty much avoid what you're not.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's kind of, I stay in a Facebook bubble. I mean, mostly.
I'm going to have to go in deep into my settings and pick certain words and names and have them blocked so I don't see them. And that's just a whole lot of extra work.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to do that, but sometimes you don't keep scrolling when you need to keep scrolling.
Maybe.
You stop and you sit down with a cup of tea in the comments section, and that is never a good idea.
I do that.
It's never a good idea, because especially if there's 5,000 comments, that shit's getting ugly somewhere.
Right. What tends to happen with me is first thing in the morning when I wake up and I'm going through my first thing in the morning rituals, shall we say, and I haven't had my coffee yet, and I'm scrolling through Twitter and I see someone say something, and then all of a sudden, even though I really don't, I got time that day, and then I go and the next thing you know, I'm angry and it's not even 10 o'clock yet. I'm admitting it's a problem.
Years ago, and I'll tell you what fixed it. Years ago, I was a major top commenter on Huffington Post.
I remember. I used to watch you go in.
And that was back when you could have a handle on Huffington Post.
Right.
So their comment section was separate and apart. You were logged into the site. You commented on the site.
You were in HuffPo land.
Right. With some sort of moniker. I can't even remember what mine was, but it wasn't particularly cryptic, but it wasn't my full name.
Correct.
And I used to go in, I used to have all these conversations with homophobes, and sometimes it actually went somewhere productive, just trying to add the facts and all of that. But what they did that fundamentally just shut me down was they linked your profile to your Facebook profile.
Right.
So that you're now commenting with your government name.
Right.
And I wasn't gonna. Because, a lot of times the controversy that ensued and the dialogue that ensued, I wasn't trolling at all.
Right.
I was actually trying to be helpful and useful and shed some light in dark corners.
Right.
But I wasn't willing to do that anymore.
Right. Because it will bleed over into the rest of your world.
Right. So that's really the last time I was that engaged. Do you know what I mean? Like that engaged in like the comments and following up and following people and recognizing who the trolls were. Mm-hmm. And I thought of that because they used to make like a nickel a post just to fuck with you. Like there were paid commenters.
Oh, right.
Who would just come in and take a shit and get 5 cents. And then they would drop something nonsensical.
What is this, Germany?
And then go away. And I just remember, saying often, because you could spot them, like, and there's another nickel, and there's another nickel.
Right.
But yeah, I left when it was no longer possible to just have a bit of anonymity, because that used to be important in some circles, that you didn't have to, you could sign up with a username. And comment with a username.
Right.
And that's still the case a lot of places, and it's important in some places, especially in the queer community, where we have folks who are questioning. We have, kids who are participating on the internet, asking questions on different forums,
Right.
And they should not have to do it with their first and last.
Right. And that's the thing, with Twitter and
to
social media in general that I enjoy is that I've had very many valuable conversations with people just over a topic or whatever. And even in the best of circumstances, Twitter can be a fucking sewer, but it can also be, a valuable tool. And I'm just afraid that if it becomes the wild, wild west again, that it's just going to be, I don't know.
Well, then we'll have to decide. But it never occurs to you to just stay the fuck out of the comments section. Like, just stay the fuck out of just avoid that.
And I do way more than I don't.
Because you can scroll past, like, what people post, too. You don't have to read everything.
Yeah, no, I stay out of the comments more than I don't.
You're getting better.
I am, but
you ain't there yet.
No, because sometimes
You're still not there.
I just can't let certain things go unchecked.
Yeah,
sometimes.
you can, but you can because the checking doesn't, like, generally 97% of the time the checking is pointless. It's pointless.
I mean, I don't say way more than I do say.
I mean,
in real life and on the internet.
A big part of my point used to be, like with Huffington Post, was leaving comments there not because I thought that they were going to affect the conversation or the person who was just being an absolute jackass, but I left it there for the kids who might read behind me, who might be reading this story, get upset, and then say, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
Which is part of what we try to do with this podcast, is to say, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. This is what these people are doing.
Right.
And let's keep breathing. Let's find ourselves. Let's think about our positive responses and keep going. Because we're still fucking magic, but
right.
It's hard to see your own power and your own worth. When you're bogged down by so much.
I'm glad you said that, because that actually is my point. There have been times, most of the time when I go in like that, it's not necessarily because I need to have my say. It's that there needs to be one voice saying this shit ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
And if I scroll a certain amount down and I haven't seen that voice, then okay, fine. I got to say something just so that it's been said.
Right.
I'm not trying to change hearts and minds necessarily, but it's like, I can't just leave that there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Today we welcome Amberlynn Boyder, Vice President of the local Spartanburg, South Carolina chapter of PFLAG, and her lovely wife, Gabby, who has referred to herself as an accidental lesbian, and I just love that. Welcome to the Full Circle Table.
Hi, Charles. Hi, Martha. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much
for having us.
We appreciate you so much.
Of course, welcome.
I'd love to know more about your transition as a family, and either or both of you, because certainly you've both transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, to do a no-no, like we talked about just before we started, I am going to use transgender as a noun and say that I am a little bit of a baby trans.
Yeah.
I am a COVID baby in the trans community. I came out socially in August of 2021 after going through probably a good solid year of just flux. Honestly, had started a few of the medical steps in transition as well prior to coming out socially. But one thing that I think is kind of important to let people know, especially people who come out later in life, a lot of times we hear these stories of the trans person who said, I always knew all my life I was screaming that I was a girl or I was screaming that I was a boy at 3 or 4 years old. And for a while, that caused me to kind of question my own experience because that was, while I can certainly point to many events in my childhood that said, yeah, I was definitely different, because it wasn't to that intensity that we hear so often, it did make me question a lot. Probably my earliest memory was at probably 4 years old. One of my favorite shows at the time was Wheel of Fortune. And I really, really resonated with Vanna White.
Okay.
And my parents thought that it was just, he just really likes Vanna White, really thinks that she's pretty and everything else. And yeah, that was true. But, later on you find out that there's a little more to that. And by 14, having never met a trans person, I knew that that was a path that felt really right to me, but also I was in the deep South. I was in very, very religious upbringings and things like that. And so I kind of put myself on hold until I was 33 and started exploring a lot of different things. And then in May of 2021, I was sitting on our couch after having been married. At that point, we'd been married for
8 years.
8 years, or almost 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay. I was almost hyperventilating, and I said, I need to explore this more, and I effectively just need to know that I have your permission to explore all the way.
Right.
And to say that that was a difficult conversation is really an understatement for us, because we both were raised in very, very conservative religious families. Mm-hmm. We were actively involved in a Southern Baptist megachurch at the time. I played bass guitar on stage in this thousands big megachurch not every Sunday, but in rotation, right? Mm-hmm. And I was pretty sure that my marriage was going to be over. And I'll let you.
Just adopted a baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
So you add that into the mix, and my first thought was, this cannot be happening. This cannot be happening. We've just grown our family after trying for many years. And so it took a leap of faith, and just kind of reevaluating our relationship and kind of basically what we meant to each other. Do I want to stick around and see this through, or do I just want to call it quits and hightail it out of here? Right. But then it just kind of resonated that she's my best friend, and I love her for who she is. And even though there was that physical attraction before transition, I can still find her attractive now. And, it was like, this is the person I fell in love with, so I'm going to stick around.
And that's the meat of it. Yeah. The person, everything about the person is still there. Mm-hmm. They're still the same person you fell in love with. Just the packaging changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
and the gift inside is the more important part.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I will agree.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and mocking Republican ass hattery since God knows when.
I was giggling at myself over the break about the way I was talking about rap music. I was feeling very get off my lawn.
I think you're showing your age.
It's just funny the way my tastes have changed as I've gotten older.
Yeah, I think it's clear you're on the south side of 40.
Well, it's funny because, like, okay, after the Super Bowl halftime show, the next morning I immediately went and replayed Dr. Dre's album Chronic 2001.
Yes, you
which
did.
I bumped really loud and often when it was new and I was in my younger days. And the album is still amazing. Like, nothing has changed about it except for the fact that as I'm listening to the lyrics, I'm going, well, that's just inappropriate. I just laugh at myself every now and again when I realize I really am this old.
Yeah, you are.
But good music is still good music, and I will still enjoy it even if I cringe a little bit on the inside.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and protecting little white children everywhere.
Patti LuPone had to come for the audience during Talkback during Company on Broadway because apparently there were members in the audience that either didn't have their mask on or weren't wearing them properly.
Somehow we knew that they were, I guess, anti-maskers or something. Somehow. Maybe they just weren't wearing them and they were supposed to.
Right. And she read the fuck out of that.
I'll bet she did.
Who the fuck do you think you are? The reason why we're able to be in the theater is because of the mask mandate. And how are you going to put us in danger? And And the chick in the audience was like, we pay your salary.
I know.
And she was like, bullshit. The producer pays my salary.
You know who the last person is you want to say shit like that to?
Patti LuPone. That's right. Because she will come for that ass. If you have your phone out, she's going to come for you. She will stop singing. Mm-hmm. She will break character and stop singing to tell you about yourself.
She really will. Yeah. She's just, she's tired.
And people were like trying
I don't blame her.
People were trying to be shitty about it on Twitter, like talking about, well, the people on stage weren't wearing masks, so why did because they're all regularly tested, they're all vaccinated.
Yeah. And they're trying to give you a performance without masks. So you have the full effect of what you did pay for. Put your fucking mask on.
Right.
Or stay out of live theater right now.
Right.
And if it's so egregious to you.
And what I said was, I tried to be logical with these ass hats.
Oh,
I'm like,
you can't.
There's hundreds of people seated together, all facing the same direction toward the stage. And if the show does what it's supposed to, you'll be prompted to laugh or, cheer. And so that's like a germ cannon pointed.
It really is pointed at the stage.
Wear your fucking mask. It's fucking logic.
Yeah, I mean, we have a friend touring in a Broadway show who's out of the show right now for COVID.
See,
because it happens because they leave the stage and whatever. But it sucks. That sucks. And thank God, polio was never politicized. Thank God. That everybody just went, yeah, hey, there's a vaccine now. Let's go get it. Let's make this better. Thank God. Because folks have lost their fucking mind. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the roses, irises, and peonies filling my garden today.
Yes. Oh, Virginia mother, who is white, and trust me, that's going to be important to the story. She's basically suing the school district that her son goes to school in, accusing them of brainwashing her son with critical race theory. Because even though his father is like all the way black, and the kid himself is, a biracial, not white kid.
Black. He's black.
I was getting there.
Okay.
He black.
I'm just, yeah. You know how this works.
It wasn't until...
Come on, Poppy.
Shut up. It wasn't until he was made aware of his blackness in school that he starts to think of himself as being black. And now he's different. She's trying to say he looks Hawaiian.
Yeah, she said some shit like that.
He's beautiful. So first of all, he's beautiful because he looks Hawaiian. So if he's black, he looks black, then he doesn't look beautiful. You know, that's one part of it.
After these CRT lessons, everything changed.
Right. You have a black son, ma'am.
She went on Fox News, of course.
Right.
She never had issues with her son before this, by the way.
Yeah, issues. When you fucked your black husband and you had a kid, you had a black kid. I'm sorry about it. And you can feel however you want to feel about it. And you can try to say he's not black if you want to. But when that child enters the world, that's the way it is. You have a black son.
You know, she said on Fox News, he is in the 8th grade. He's seeing himself just as a black man. He's seeing things that don't go his way as racism. And he's finding safety in numbers now. She even complained that her son won't do his household chores anymore because he says it's racist to ask him to do them.
Now, the first parts of that.
I don't know how she asks, and I don't know what she makes him wear to do the chores. Like, I have so many questions about this bitch on Fox News. I have so many questions.
Put your dishwashing rags on, darky.
This child has seen the light of fucking day. And, like, he is like, Cracker, I have had enough of your shit. Like, we don't know what their house is like. We don't know. We don't know.
Well, maybe if you wouldn't have him sing those songs while he did the housework.
But only the spirituals. We don't know what she sings along to. There's so much not said in the story.
Maybe if you wouldn't call him Kizzy while he does the dishes.
Yeah, they have Kunta. They have no.
If you don't clean your room, I'm gonna cut off your foot.
What did they try to rename
Kunta?
Was it Earl or something? Like whatever. Toby, that's right. Yeah, she calls him. Yeah, we don't know what she calls him.
Yeah, you.
They have quote. They have totally changed his perspective. They have put him in a box. Her lawyer said it's never right for a school to teach kids that they are. I'm sorry. It's never right. Well, never mind. For a school to teach kids that they are determined by their race. It's never okay for a school to tell kids that bigotry should be fought with bigotry and racism should be fought by doubling down on racism. Those things are not okay. They're a violation of students' civil rights.
By telling your black son that he's black. Maybe if you wouldn't refer to him coming home from school as coming in the big house, maybe we wouldn't have these problems.
She just doesn't. Yeah, I don't want him to know about systemic racism. He was my beautiful little Hawaiian boy last week.
First of all,
now he's refusing my pedicure.
I guess he won't warm her bed no more neither.
He won't wear the white gloves. He won't carry the goddamn tray. The bow tie is apparently also out of the question.
Oh my God.
It was so charming when the girls came over for tea. He ain't playing along with any of our shit anymore.
Oh my God.
And his father just keeps putting his fist in the air.
Oh.
I don't know what to do anymore.
His father keeps putting his... Yeah, I want to know what the father had to say during all this shit.
I'm going to guess they're divorced. I don't know. I don't know.
Goodness.
I don't know. But if they're not, come get your wife. Oh my God.
Girl, you have a black son. I'm sorry you didn't know.
The author, by the way, I'm reading this from Daily Cause. The author said, as a black person myself with a black biracial son, I have to ask why this woman waited until her son was in middle school.
Thank you.
To tell him the truth about how this nation sees him. Is teaching him about white privilege, white supremacy, slavery, segregation, redlining, and racist, violent, and often deadly policing really what's changed him? Teaching kids about the reality of racism isn't designed to taint or divide them. It's about teaching them the history of the country they live in. And without education, reconciliation, and truth, there will never be change. No shit.
If you see being black as a step back, then I guess you do see this as a problem.
Please welcome Julia Serrano to the Full Circle table.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Julia.
Hello. Yeah, this is something that's been brewing for a while. In fact, in Whipping Girl, I talk about the ways in which trans people, and especially trans women, are sexualized in our culture. And there's even a chapter in that book called Transsexualization. And some of the early ideas I talk a bit in that book about, in that chapter, about the predator-prey mindset, which comes up a lot in Sexed Up, the new book. And particularly in Whipping Girl, I was trying to explain a lot of my experiences and other people's experiences with regards to, how people view trans people and trans women and trans feminine spectrum people. And sexualization was definitely a really big part of it. And I think in Whipping Girl, I did a good, first pass on trying to understand why it is that people project a lot of sexual messages on people on the trans female and trans feminine spectrum, specifically in a world where women are viewed as sexual objects. There's this tendency to assume that there must be sexual motives behind why anyone would want to become female or become feminine.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the crick in my neck left from shaking my head all damn week. So when it came time to speak at his graduation ceremony, he took off his mortarboard hat and he pointed to his head. Quote, I used to hate my curls. I spent mornings and nights embarrassed of them, trying desperately to straighten this part of who I am. But the daily damage of trying to fix myself became too much to do. So while having curly hair in Florida is difficult due to the humidity, I decided to be proud of who I was and started coming to school as my authentic self. He said his teachers were some of the first people he went to for advice because he didn't have other curly-haired people to talk to, and said the support he got at school helped him to grow. Now I'm happy, and that is what is at stake. There are going to be so many kids with curly hair who need a community like Pineview, and they won't have one. Instead, they'll try to fix themselves so they can exist in Florida's humid climate.
Come on, metaphor.
Yeah. Welcome to the Full Circle table, Kathy O'Connell.
Thank you so much. It's so cool to be here at your table, like I've never been there anywhere, anytime before. 5-year-olds know a trans kid or know someone, or no, they may not know the words for it yet, but they're just, okay, it's another person. It's part of who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
And kids are so accepting. And the fact is, these are wonderful musicians who are singing from their hearts and truly creating from their hearts. But also because they say there's many more of us out there. There's many more parents of trans kids and allies of trans kids and teachers and kids of trans people who all operate together and vote, please.
Yes, thank you.
But who exist. You can send out a message without hitting kids and people over the head with it.
Right.
And the whole, oh, honey, this is how you're supposed to think. genre of kids music, which thankfully has kind of gone by the wayside long ago, has been replaced and energized by this more energy of real life. And you see it reflected in a lot of subject matter, including racial equality and issues of things that are being shut down all over or attempted to be shut down. Right. But you can't stop the beat.
Get out of my head, lady.
It always gets back to show tunes, kid.
It always does. It really does. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and finding pride among other people's rubble. We were introduced to, or I was introduced initially, to Shea Coffee.
Yes.
Shea Coffee is one of the founders and the current station manager for Medway Pride Radio in the UK. They are one of the fastest growing radio stations in the UK. I believe the numbers are somewhere around 30,000 listeners a month currently.
And growing.
And I sent Shay our link tree, and I just said, this is probably the best way to introduce myself to you. And I was just hoping we could kind of interview each other.
Right.
And Shay came back and said...
I mean, I have to say, when I first heard the podcast, I absolutely fell in love with it. A mutual friend put us in contact, and they said to me, "You've got to hear these guys, and you are just brilliant. There is a wonderful intersectionality to your conversations."
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you.
It is, however, a podcast that's coming to Medway Pride Radio.
Woohoo!
How excited. We are so excited about this. We really
Thrilled.
I'm trying to up my UK news. So I'm at least paying attention to what's got, like, I just found that you all had like an old Queen Street party this weekend. Did I follow that right?
We did indeed. We had the Platinum Jubilee, or as some people insist on calling it, the Platinum Jubilee. Yes.
That sounds like a different event.
You will be baffled by English language. I promise you that by the end of your time with Medway Pride Radio.
This will be fun.
And we even got involved at Medway Pride Radio, and we joined in with one of the local parties, and we made sure they did it right, because some of these straights.
Oh no, they don't know how to party. They don't. That's why they have. It's like, what would y'all have if you did put us all on an island somewhere? There goes your music. There goes your art. Really. And there goes most of your good time, because we're always there. So,
it would just be beige and banjos.
Right.
That sounds like a brilliant name for a group, doesn't it?
Beige and banjo. But is it one anyone would listen to?
And they only play on Wednesdays.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and all the rainbows of June.
Once we realized that prosthetics were the way of the future, HBO ran with it, because there's been, I don't even know, like, HBO is notorious for having the most peen in their shows, and they also have a lot of
it's cable, they can get away with it, but they're right. Usually if it's an erection, it's not real.
Oh, right.
It's probably the truth. Yeah. But then they try to be all, well, you figure it out. But so there was, by my count, but I was also doing something at the time, but there was one in like the first episode, and it didn't look real to me, because he was like, the dude was naked a lot in the, so you saw his dick a lot, and then suddenly it's kind of a different color. Oh, Jesus. I'm like, I don't think that's real.
Is there no makeup department in this show?
Or it's picking up light, but maybe it's just picking up the light differently. But it looked much lighter than I remembered his dick being in just a scene before. So I was like, that's weird. They usually don't get lighter.
I feel like this whole chunk of conversation is not going to make
I'm
it
just
to the
saying, UK. I think it will. I think they just might have to bleep certain words. But I mean, I will say this, the very light-skinned men that I have, had the experience of
seeing them in various states. I don't think that I've never seen one get lighter. Pinker, redder, what, like purple even, but not never like lighter, like suddenly two shades. It's just, it was odd to me. But, you know, so I think that one's fake. I think. But anyway, I will continue to report as I work my way down the list. I don't expect to, you know, make it all the way through a lot of this crap, because sometimes it is just bad. And, you know, estrogen has helped or hindered my, like, I don't, whatever. You know what I mean?
One of the things on the list was the
now it has to be a good show and have dick in it. Because there was a time when I was just like, oh God. But this episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine. How I love her. And our love for our dear ones across the pond at Medway Pride Radio.
Yeah.
This is just funny because it happens every year, and it has happened for the last 20 years. The Log Cabin Republicans, that group of self-loathing faggots in Texas.
Yeah.
Every year they apply to have just a booth on the floor of the Republican convention in Texas. Just every year it's like the minimum amount of respect a group could be shown. The very minimum amount is to at least be allowed to have a booth at the thing. Not being allowed to speak or any, but just a booth. For the 20th year in a row, the GOP in Texas said, nope. Mm-hmm. And now they're starting to make some noise about it, and all of a sudden these people are talking about inclusion and how inclusion is the way.
That part.
When did you ever care about inclusion?
That part.
When? The entire time, like all of you supported Trump, first of all, and then, you know, and all of you have been fighting against the fight for our rights all of this time, including queer rights, not just trans rights, but, you know, LGBTQ rights. And now they want to talk about inclusion. Like, I'm sorry. First of all, I will still never understand how you can be queer and be a Republican on this planet. I will never understand it. The couple that I know who are also significantly older than me, the couple of them that I know, and I find to be decent human beings in every other regard, and do criticize their own party, thank God. I've called them self-loathing faggots to their face. To their face. I'm like, I don't know why you don't like yourself more, but, you know, I like you otherwise. But there's only a couple.
I'm laughing because the mental image I got is like the door to the big house slammed shut behind him, and they slowly turn to the field and start going, swing low.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We should learn that song now.
Sweet cherry. Is that how it goes? I thought that's how y'all said it.
She explores genres of music like none other. She's one of the most talented and funniest live performers we have ever seen, and we got to spend last Saturday night with Susan Warner. Welcome to the Full Circle table.
I am really happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche, voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Il est entré dans mon cœur une peur de bonheur, donc je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, là je réponds la Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat.
Susan Warner.
Oh my goodness. I felt things.
This episode is brought to you by decanted jug wine and the beauty of a perfectly timed Xanax. I'm just going to start with, if all life is allegedly sacred, y'all, let's start acting like it.
From Stonewall, a brick, and Portland, an axe, respect our pride or expect our wrath.
If only there had actually been bricks at Stonewall, but point taken.
Right.
Where do we think they got bricks? Like, I don't know where that came from, but where do they think this stack of bricks was?
Right.
In the West Village in 1969. Like, there was no construction site nearby. But anyway.
Right.
I've talked to people who were there, and they're like, we didn't have bricks. We didn't have bricks. There were no bricks. Where were the bricks coming from? There were shot glasses.
Right.
They threw shot glasses.
It's not like during the protests for George Floyd's murder where mounds of bricks suddenly appeared.
Yeah, I know, right?
But that's
where
a whole
did
nother.
These come from?
Right.
Yeah, that
look.
where they actually did deliver bricks. I mean,
Right.
maybe the cops did that in '69 as well. Maybe they did. I mean, they've been doing shit like that a long time. That's what started the whole kerfuffle, if you recall.
I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying
Yeah.
if they did, I would not be surprised.
Police work that has no business existing. That's
Right.
what it was. Yeah.
Right.
This episode is brought to you by decanted jug wine and the self-imposed pain of white cis women everywhere. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, baby.
It feels like it was weeks ago, but it was not. It was last year we celebrated 10 years.
Last year?
I'm sorry, last week.
Yeah, see? Time means nothing.
Time means nothing post-COVID. We celebrated 10 years since our first date.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how we have tracked time. So July the 14th marked 10 years since that first date.
And it simultaneously feels like forever and 5 minutes at the same time. I meant that in a nice way.
Mm-hmm,
I did not mean that in a shady way.
And I was letting it go because I had my own thought to share. So I actually was just going to let that go completely. That was back when I had my was it my 3-date rule or my 4-date rule?
It doesn't matter.
Well, you got an exemption. You did. You got an exemption. But, when I was back out there dating, I was like, yeah, I have this rule. And some men do not like rules. But I was like, yeah, no. We're not, no. Was it 3 or was it 4? Or sex on the 4th date? But there had to be 3.
How the hell would I know?
I know. It's true. It went out the window. But we knew each other. We did know each other for 10 years before we went out the very first time. So it really wasn't like... I'm talking about people I had just met.
I didn't hear about this rule till after the fact. So
Correct.
me no.
Correct. But I did have one. And it didn't always go well. But I was like, that's separating the wheat from the chaff.
See, that's what you get.
Well, I figured, I wasn't getting any younger, and I wasn't,
I mean,
I had the slut days, and I wasn't trying to go back there.
I understand.
Yeah, that was all.
I understand.
I was like, if this is going to be even a casual thing, we still should know each other first.
Right.
That's why I imposed the rule. But yeah, that all went out the window, so... We're still together.
You're welcome / I'm sorry.
It is an absolute honor to welcome someone who has so often helped me shape my own views and think through my responses in challenging situations. Nellie Fitzpatrick, welcome to the Full Circle table.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I think that the LGBTQ population has an unbelievable opportunity in front of us. I think that opportunity is truly that we are a microcosm, at least of our country. If we look at the United States, and I know that you all are listened to across the world, everywhere that we are queer communities are a microcosm of the population. So if we are wanting the larger population to see us and respect us and make space for all of us, well, then we have to do it for ourselves as well. And that's uncomfortable, maybe. That means you have to learn more things. That means you've gotten things wrong. That means you've gotten things right. That means you'll never agree on certain things. But we absolutely have to see each other. We can no longer look past each other or not include each other or not think that we can't cherry pick movements. And that's,
right.
I look at Roe and
big one.
It's very easy, probably, I'm assuming, for maybe a gay cisgender man to say, well, I don't have a uterus and I don't have any, this doesn't affect me. And it's, whoa, yes, it does. In fact,
right.
It's going to
affect
all of your rights. And we're not making it up. Look at what the Supreme Court is telling you in the concurring opinion. It's right there. The cases are spelled out. It is coming for you. And you should care about access to health care for people in the population next to you. Because that's what we're asking people who do not see us and do not understand us to do. And so if we cannot do it for each other, what are we doing?
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and learning to crochet after 3 full glasses of it.
Fuck him, man.
Republican from where, Missouri?
Him.
Yeah. Him.
So footage leaked of him running out of the Capitol on January 6th from the insurrectionists.
Oh, wait, isn't this, they set it to Benny Hill? The music from Benny Hill.
Did they?
Is this the one I saw? Yes, I saw that. It was great. It was great. It was perfect.
Even though there's that picture of him with his fist up on the way in, rallying support of the Trumpers.
Yes.
So,
and then he ran like hell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he released a book, or is releasing a book on masculinity.
Called Manhood,
the masculine virtues Americans need.
Get the fuck out of here. It argues that the left is waging a war on masculinity.
Yeah. I wonder what he means by that. So, needless to say, everyone is having a good old time at his expense. And, I don't want to get into the whole thing about manhood because that borders very close on misogyny and homophobia. I'm not trying to do all that. All I'm going to say on the subject is, while there are many ways to be a man, and I'm not here to say what is quote unquote right or wrong, I'm pretty sure it doesn't include running away from a problem you helped create.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say on that. Like, whatever being a man is or isn't, I know it ain't that.
We're so proud to welcome Chris Matthews to the Full Circle table. Hey, Chris.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
I think all the time about how powerful of a coalition it would be. I mean, we would be a force to be reckoned with if everybody just came together. If all of the Black people came together with all of the LGBTQ people, or as we like to say, the LGBTQI, if all of the LGBTQI and all of the Black people and all of the women and the feminists and everybody else who has been just spat upon by the patriarchy just decided to just go ahead and put them in their rightful place, I mean, it would be done. There would be so much that would be fixed because we are so much more. We are legion. We outnumber them so much. But because
we are the majority,
we continue to busy ourselves with doing their work, they just keep on keeping us down. And it's just so disheartening because there really are. I mean, there are so many of us. You could not stop us. Nope. And so I hope that people will eventually realize that themselves and get mad enough about the fact that they've been doing the work for the patriarchy that they're just like, okay, yeah, this is dumb. We need to go ahead and fix this right now.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine, and this space now reserved for the sponsor just waiting to come forward and partner with us.
But it's 1999 and you're dealing with a bunch of Gen Xers. So they're already, the disillusionment is already baked in anyway.
Yeah.
And then you do this shit to them.
I had no desire to go then.
No.
I'm very roughing it averse anyway. So it's, I'm like, no.
Yeah, no.
Because if it rains, now we're camping in the mud
and garbage because there was no one to pick it up.
And the garbage, I know, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's why you didn't see no black people.
The porta potty situation, you really didn't see many black people. Yeah, and that's probably why. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, it's almost like Philadelphia Pride 2022. No black people. Boop. Yeah.
But you know what?
Well, they were all at the Roots picnic.
Right.
In fairness, they were at the Roots picnic.
But you know what I noticed in this documentary, and I part of me kind of knew this, but this was almost confirmation, how Limp Bizkit at Woodstock 99 was like the breeding ground for douchey ass dude white bros everywhere.
And I will say this, I thought watching that young white cis male behavior in 1999 explains a lot about the politics of 2022.
Oh yeah, because these motherfuckers grow up
and now they're in Congress.
Yeah,
and it's no better. It's no better. Their behavior, they have not learned a thing.
Yeah, they went from being one of the people losing their shit when Fred Durst was like, when this song kicks in, I want you to kick in. And now they're kicking in
they
Congress.
did. Yeah. Right. They set stuff on fire.
Yeah.
Eventually. It was crazy. It was crazy. And see, none of that, none of those bands, Kid Rock, all of them that were no. No, thank you. Even the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean,
that's the part that cracked me up when shit started going way left and south on the last night and shit was on fire, and they sent the Red Hot Chili Peppers out there to calm the crowd down. When you want a voice of reason, you do not send out Anthony Kiedis and Flea. That is not what you do.
You don't.
Flea was butt ass naked for their entire set.
Yep.
And you want him to come out there and reason with a motherfucker? No.
Yeah, this is not the person you send as your diplomat. No, but they did, and yeah, it didn't go well. Imagine that.
Let me send the people whose only costumes are socks on their penises. They know the way.
They know how to calm the crowd. LGBT Quiet is a one-act play that follows a group of students as they navigate claiming their personal identities in the culture war of their school.
A performing arts company made up of high school students, Shadow Company members learn about all aspects of the theater-making process, including on- and off-stage roles.
I talked with these incredible teens while you ran sound, and the kids are definitely all right.
It has definitely been kind of therapeutic, especially since my character, Bryce, as a black teenager who is growing up in a more intolerant society, that has been therapeutic.
I've been in Yes and my entire life. Yeah. And basically the role that I play in the show is just this dude. He's a stud. And I think it's really funny to play this super straight person. And I can just do whatever I want, and it's really fun.
Is it comfortable or uncomfortable to do the...
Well, it's a little bit of both. I think it is, if I lean into the humor aspect of it, it's oh yeah, I could just manspread as far as I can, and let's see where this takes us.
I have been with Yes and since I was in kindergarten.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I've been doing Shadow for the past 4 years, and other ways I've participated in Shadow besides performing is also choreographing.
Oh wow.
Choreographing. Yeah. And I'm playing Jackson and Orange, aka motivational speaker number 2.
Who came up with that? Who was that? Just y'all, or because the orange and the apple, it's gold.
So I play August, and one thing I really resonate with is at one point another character asks him, "How did you know you were queer?" And his response is, "I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out." this is like, it's more or less, I know that this is true about myself, and I'm going to figure out what that means.
Okay.
And there's a lot about, I am non-binary, and there's a lot about August where I'm like, I don't share this experience, but that is one which I definitely share of. I don't really know what's happening, but I'm not going to figure myself out without stepping outside of this a little bit and being like, okay, I'm this. Let's see what it feels like to be this. And so I guess that's kind of one thing I want people to take away of like, if you don't know, you can still claim things and you can still experiment. You don't have to know.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the joy of a lovely breeze on an open windows afternoon. You know, libs of TikTok, and I think this is one person, I think.
Right.
They have been labeled a hate group, which I think feels very accurate.
Yep.
May just be a hate individual, apparently out of Brooklyn. But they were credited with providing the Florida GOP with the language deeming gay men as groomers. They proudly brag that they've gotten LGBTQ plus teachers around the country fired. And now they turned their focus to Boston Children's Hospital. And they're claiming to be the genesis of this. They posted a video of an employee who was discussing gender-affirming hysterectomies. It's a 33-second video, right? Which is accurate. But because it came from a children's hospital, you know, they have quite erroneously lied and said that Boston Children's Hospital is giving children hysterectomies.
Right.
That's where all of this came from.
Yeah.
Was never true.
Nope.
Was never accurate.
Nope. Wasn't even what was said.
Ever. Yeah. Easily verified as inaccurate.
Yeah.
And should have never, ever been a story.
Right.
Because there's no story here. Of course, it has stirred up the right wing. It has stirred up these white supremacists. It has stirred up all of these very low information folks who don't even check the source material. What I found really disturbing was that there were a couple of news outlets that covered this without correcting it. Unless these were mock-ups by these people, I don't know. But it looked like there were a couple local news stations that just ran with the story. That's what it looked like. But as we know, they make these mock-ups of things to support an argument that has no base to begin with.
Right.
So who knows? But yeah, they've been having to postpone children's cancer treatments
because
for
of the
safety
and
of the children, because of the flack and the hate and protests and death threats.
Yeah.
To, you know, doctors and healthcare workers who are taking care of children.
Right. Right.
But apparently this person has 1.3 million followers on Twitter alone, has single-handedly curated and injected misinformation and hyperbole into the social media sphere with an obsession toward the LGBTQ plus community.
This fear and hate and nonsense is fueling more hate and fear and nonsense, and it's causing real life ramifications and damage. And
the administration of Boston's children, there's been an influx of death threats, bomb threats, threats to the safety of the staff, and disruption in the day-to-day services helping patients. They've had to hire more security to protect the families of inpatient children being treated for various ailments, even cancer, while on hospital grounds. It's stochastic terrorism, which we're going to talk about. Full stop.
Yeah, that term was actually brought to our attention, or at least my attention, recently through a friend of the podcast, Amber Lynn. In one of her posts, she mentioned stochastic terrorism, and I looked it up, and it's becoming a huge problem. Stochastic terrorism is the public demonization of a person or group, resulting in the incitement of a violent act, which is statistically probable but whose specifics cannot be predicted. So basically, if you go on your TikTok and have a large following of millions of people and say that the Boston Children's Hospital is performing hysterectomies on children, and all of a sudden you get people phoning in death threats and bomb threats, that is an example of stochastic terrorism. Sitting president suggesting that people storm the Capitol, and then that results in people storming the Capitol. That is an example of stochastic terrorism. So I think that is a phrase that is going to unfortunately be in all of our lexicons.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the life-enhancing value of paying attention. The Door McAllen Church in Texas, which staged its own version of Hamilton, very different from the original. Why don't you start us off?
So they did this completely unlicensed version.
And originally they tried to say, oh, we have permission.
Right.
They lied.
They very much lied.
Yeah.
And
which becomes clear quickly.
Lin-Manuel Miranda and the team over at Hamilton very much stepped up and said, the hell.
Mm-hmm.
Slapped them with a nice big heavy cease and desist, which apparently they violated. And now the church has to pay damages. And they released this apology that just makes me smile and giggle all over myself. On behalf of the Door Christian Fellowship McAllen Church, I would like to personally apologize to the creator of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda, the producers of Hamilton, and the numerous others who contributed their intellectual property to Hamilton for staging an unauthorized production of Hamilton that infringed on the rights and copyrights of many.
Mm-hmm.
The Door Christian Fellowship McAllen Church did not ask for or receive a license from the producers or creators of Hamilton to produce, stage, replicate, or alter any part of Hamilton, nor did we seek prior permission to alter Lin-Manuel Miranda's work by changing the music, the lyrics, deleting songs, and adding dialogue. We respect the copyrights of Hamilton's author and contributors. These copyrights are protected by federal law. We acknowledge they are lawful. I'm just picturing people like standing over them with their arms crossed like, yeah, keep typing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is what you will say.
They basically going to say, we are sorry. We didn't do anything we had legal rights to do. We are, and my mama's a bitch, and everything you told me to say, I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it closes with, on behalf of the Door Christian Fellowship McAllen Church, we agree we will never stage the performance again and will destroy any and all video or sound recordings and images of the unauthorized performances or rehearsals, and request that all our members do the same. Lastly, we will pay damages for our actions. Can I see my kid again now, please?
Right.
Put the puppy down.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and recovering from a holiday weekend. I that's the one country, yeah. I really want to go to Italy. I mean, there's a lot of countries I want to go to. Italy is so lifetimes ago, I drove a limousine, and it was mostly corporate clients, and we had a CEO that had a home in this area. But he traveled the world pretty extensively, and he was an older man, and he was really interesting. And we were talking about the world and traveling. And I said, if I only ever get to one country, just one, outside of the United States, what should it be? And he said, Italy.
Yeah.
You should see it. You should absorb it. You should soak it in. It's just such a beautiful country, and you can eat your way through it, and the food is wonderful. And it didn't take him a second to think. And he had homes all over the world, but he was like, yeah, Italy, go to Italy. So, I've always remembered that.
Right.
From someone who had been everywhere.
I used to think that for me, it was going to be France.
I want to go there too.
I want to go to France. I want to go to Paris.
Now I desperately want to go to the UK because I want to hang out with our friends From Medway Pride Radio.
Hey, Medway Pride. But yeah, Italy is definitely.
I have a renewed desire to see the UK.
Yeah, I want to check out the UK. I've always wanted to see. Yeah,
but yeah, and we have it's interesting to me that our largest listener base in Italy is in Tuscany,
right?
And when my daughter went, she had a class trip to Italy, and she loved all of it. But Florence and Tuscany, that was her favorite part of it. And she said, that's where you need to go. And so I love that. We have listeners there. Hopefully one day we'll get there and meet you in person.
I would be happy to.
Wouldn't that be fun?
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and Mermaids aren't real.
Yes, they are. No, they're not.
I hate to, but mermaids, like unicorns, they're not real.
Right.
So it would follow.
Right.
They can't be the wrong race.
Right.
Because they're not real.
Yes.
Yeah. Why are white people losing their minds? What is happening?
So the teaser trailer for the upcoming live action Little Mermaid, the Disney's Little Mermaid,
right,
came out last week. And Halle Bailey, who is a phenomenal singer,
yes,
is going to be playing the role of Ariel. And so the trailer starts off, we're seeing the fish swimming in the ocean, and we hear her voice singing Part of Your World. And at the very end, she comes forward into the light, and we can see her as well as hear her. And there she is, all, black as Halle Bailey is. And collectively, white people lost their shit.
I mean, they could be any color. They could be pink or blue or green.
As she was in the original Hans Christian Andersen
right. I mean,
story.
They're mythical.
Right.
Creatures.
Right.
So
her being white with red hair was also historically inaccurate.
Because there's no history here.
And by historically inaccurate, I mean going from the source material of the story, which was also a piece of fiction.
Right. Because it talks about a mermaid.
Right.
And they're not real.
Right.
We've never found one.
Not one. Well, one could argue that the legend of the mermaid came from sailors seeing manatees.
Right. I've heard that. Yeah.
And
then they thought they saw these half women, half fish.
Right.
Which people. That would be a lot of ale to see a manatee. Although women were more robust back in the day.
Well, that plus a lot of them had scurvy, so that might have had something to do with.
Oh, that too.
Yeah.
Not to mention the syphilis.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that can alter your vision.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the problem now.
That's a hell of an outbreak.
Yeah, it's just racism, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
white people are mad. And the thing is,
but
hardly anyone is actually saying, I do not like the fact that the Little Mermaid is black. They're not saying those words. They're saying things like, she doesn't have red hair, or it's not like the source material, or just all kinds of nonsense like that. We can't just be racist.
Well,
but my favorite thing sure
is they are. But they're not. Yeah.
I felt so seen and represented when I saw a character with red hair like me. And now
nobody has red hair like that. Nobody.
That
I mean, yeah, it was cartoon red.
Right. Unless it came out of a bottle, in which case, hello.
I was a ginger. That's bullshit.
Thank you. They're trying to say that now there's a whole generation of kids that won't have representation. Which, irony,
Oh my God.
Because have you seen all the videos of little black girls who were seeing the trailer for the first time, and they're she's brown like me.
Yeah, all these kids that are so happy and love it and feel, represented, which is great. I've never seen, I am not familiar with a similar problem among the gingers.
And they're throwing around like, Disney's using, they have a woke actress. Because again, we don't know what words mean. She's not woke, she's black. And, they're calling it anti-white. It's like, since the dawn of movies and television, it's been centered around and for white people.
And straight people.
I'm
aware.
I lived a good chunk of my life with 99.2% nothing but white people in the media that I consumed.
Correct.
Because that's what was available. So now for 5 seconds, you have stories where, the main protagonist is not white, and you can't handle it.
Rob Reichard, welcome to the Full Circle Table, and thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Our numbers are going down.
Right.
In the United States, our numbers of new infections. We also, about the time of PrEP coming out, was also when we finally acknowledged U equals U.
Yes.
That, undetectable equals untransmittable.
Right.
We also had in 2010 the first national AIDS strategy. Under the Obama administration, there was never a national strategy. Everything was done locally.
Right.
So you have you have PrEP, you have U equal, the acknowledgement that U equals U, and the emphasis, because U equals U, of really getting people into care, not just because it was the right thing morally to get people into care so they could live a long and healthy life, but from a public health standpoint, getting people into care meant that we could, possibly get a control on the number of new infections by getting people into care, getting them undetectable. And we've made strides in those areas. We're not where we need to be by any means, but we have made strides, and you're seeing the numbers go down, the number of new infections go down.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and filling your world with brilliant color on a rainy Sunday afternoon.
It has been proven that access to the arts and arts education is a lifesaver for children. If all the issues we're dealing with, gun violence and things of that nature, if you give these kids an outlet, because it's not just an activity.
Right.
It rewires your brain.
Sure.
The arts rewires your brain. Your cognitive functions are elevated. Your sense of self-worth and self-discipline are elevated. It's been proven that kids that are in arts activities do better in school, in math, in science. Your focus is better, and it gives you an outlet for all the pent-up emotions that you have due to your home life, your school life, or just being a kid.
And I've seen it with music.
Yeah.
Whether playing instruments or singing. Certainly I've seen it with dance and movement.
Yeah.
And painting and drawing and all of the things we cut when we cut school budgets.
It's the first thing to go.
Yeah, are the things that are so critical.
And one could argue that the arts are a fundamental building block for a thriving culture.
And that's a truth.
And when I say culture, I don't mean like, any kind of elite fon kind of thing. I mean like the culture, the fabric of a community, of a society,
Right.
We need the arts.
A personal hero of mine and a very funny comedian, fellow Jersey girl, Julia Scotti.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I never in 100, I'll tell you a story that when I came back to comedy, I just wanted to have some fun. And, I missed it. I wanted to get back to performing. So I found this little bar on South 2nd Street, right off South Street, called White Horse, not the White Horse, Black Horse Tavern or something like that. Anyway, I put together like a little cabaret. I wanted it to be like the improvisation where I started. That people could come in.
Oh, was it the test kitchen?
Yeah, the comedy test kitchen.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay.
And what happened was I met this gentleman. I can't remember his name now, but he worked for the Philadelphia Gay News, and he was going to do a little blurb about it. And then he found out that I was trans and that I had this comedy past. And he goes, "That's the story." So we spent like 4 hours interviewing me. And the next thing I know, I'm on the front page. My entire face, my big stupid mug, is on the front page of this paper. Oh, and that's how AGT found me. So it was
work.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're talent scouts. They have people out that are just looking for candidates, and they found that article and a couple other things I had done, and that's how they approached us. I wasn't looking for it.
Julie Brown.
Thank you so much. It's so great to meet you guys. When you do a podcast, you're completely in the dark, unless, like we said, you're doing a format everyone understands, like a true crime story. Everyone understands that. To do something different, you're going, I don't know. I think this will be okay. I just figured that having conversations with my actual friends that I find interesting, particularly funny, would be really cool, because like Drew Droege, the first one I did, he is hilarious. I mean, he's the funniest comedian. And when we did Homecoming Queen's Got a Gun, the musical, he played Debbie and I played Julie, who sings the song. And I mean, he did stuff that was insanely funny, right?
Sure.
We ended up talking about drama versus comedy and what it's like to approach those roles as an actor, and how drama is so weird compared to comedy,
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think you've heard that from him. I'm going to talk to Mindy Sterling. Do you know Mindy?
I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's a friend of mine. I mean, I started going, I know a lot of people that are so interesting that if I just have a conversation with them, that at least is a structure and has a theme to it, but it's not like obvious, right?
Besides the fact that I'm working with Julie Brown, I get to be privy to these awesome conversations.
I hope so. I mean, I hope they are. And I do feel like I'm just like, flailing, just doing it. But I'm okay with that, because a podcast isn't like, I don't think you have to accomplish things with a podcast. I think you're just obligated to do something that you find interesting,
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and daring to keep being an inconvenient human.
So, over the weekend, 2 individuals from Just Stop Oil, they went inside London's National Gallery to protest fossil fuel extraction. And the way they chose to do this was to go in front of Vincent van Gogh's famous Sunflowers painting, and they opened up 2 cans of Campbell's tomato soup and threw them on the painting. Immediately following, they pulled out some super glue, smeared it on their palms, and slapped their palms on the wall beneath the painting. And they were yelling, what's more important, human lives or art? Because of the dependence on fossil fuels, we've created this income discrepancy where the average family can't afford to heat up a can of soup. That was their overall point.
Well, they wasted 2 cans of it.
Making their point.
And, I mean, I guess it is an oil painting.
Right.
Of all the things we value in the world that we should think about, I'm not certain art is one of them. I mean, because I certainly value art above many humans.
Right. Because unlike said humans, art has actually improved our lives.
I am just of 2 minds with this. I really am. I think their cause is an important one.
Yes.
And I guess points for some creativity.
Right.
I have to say, if I was the keeper of that painting, they might still be glued to the wall.
Okay.
they would have shit themselves twice before I would have even thought about scraping their hands off of it, though. You know what I mean? Like, seriously.
There's about to be 2 art installations in this spot.
Yeah, I'd have left the soup there for them to lick up after I cleaned the painting, of course. And I would like, how about you think about this for the future?
Gunnar Montana is in the building. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. And so the idea is just to create a space that's unapologetic, that's in your celebration of self and cleansing in a queer way and community based. So you bring a lot of people together to experience this and in a queer joyous way, and I think that's all it's about, to be perfectly honest.
Queer and joy. Those are 2 words that I love being next to each other.
For sure. There's not enough of it,
Oh, that's right.
and it definitely needs to be celebrated more, or definitely need avenues to be celebrated, I think. And I usually use these shows to kind of like highlight a lot of different facets of my personality, and my person, and explore that. It's really easy to pigeonhole yourself. So I'm not always queer. I'm not always happy. I'm not always out there and crazy in wigs and heels. But when I am, I really am, and this is a year for it, for sure. I'm not quite sure we'll be there next year, but I'm living in it right now, for sure. I love it.
This episode is brought to you by Decanter Jug Wine and the ease and satisfaction of mail-in voting.
The theme song to the Phillies or the sports ball people this year in Philadelphia has been Dancing on My Own, which was originally by Robin, but the version that's been played is by Callum Scott, the slowed down, depressing version, which is actually more gay than the original, which is really gay.
It's sports ball.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Well, we did decide that, if you slap a man's ass, as long as you say good game, it's not gay.
No homo.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good game is the new no homo.
If, however, you've entered the man first. Now, I'm sorry,
but we're not playing a game.
I don't mean to sidetrack your fave. Go ahead.
Well, anyway,
this episode is brought to you by Decanter Jug Wine and election results that give me hope.
On Sunday, comedian and LGBTQ plus icon Kathy Griffin had her Twitter account suspended for mocking Elon Musk. To draw attention to the flaws in his plan to provide anyone who pays $7.99 for their verified check mark.
It went down a penny.
I know, right? She changed her Twitter profile photo and display name to mimic Musk's. And tweeted, "I've decided that voting blue for reproductive choice is only right."
Good for her.
And suddenly her account was suspended.
Wow.
Elon Musk then tweeted early Sunday evening, "Going forward, any Twitter handles engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended."
Wow. Well, okay. So this is just like his private little fiefdom now.
Exactly. Now, this is what's funny is he had tweeted a week before in reference to him, quote unquote, bringing free speech back. Quote, "Comedy is now legal on Twitter."
Oh, really?
He forgot to add, "as long as it's not about me, because I can't handle it."
Right.
Because even though I have multiple billions of dollars, I can't afford balls that are made of something stronger than Fabergé eggs.
I think they're fairly strong, aren't they?
No, they're very fragile.
Oh, are they?
That's why they're so expensive.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't have one. I don't know. So, Oscar Hoyle, welcome to the Full Circle table.
Thank you so much for having me. The initial goal was just to make a space where people that were 18 years old, up until sort of 25-ish, we were quite lenient on that rule, to be honest with you, could come in and socialize, meet people that were from the community that knew actually you don't want to go to this service because they're a bit funny to trans people. You want to go here, or I know this person, I'll get you in for free. Those sort of things, and it really just naturally took off. I never paid for marketing for it once, and this group grew from. The first session when me and my partner turned up and we're like, oh great, well it's just the two of us, I guess it's a romantic coffee date, to
Been
sort
there.
of,
Been
yeah
there.
Yeah.
to sort of upwards of 20 people before lockdown. Then lockdown came and we lost that space, so we moved online, and what we were noticing was that it was great having the social aspect, but people need to learn. And the biggest issue that the members at the time were facing was that they dropped out of school or college because of bullying, harassment, not feeling welcome. Right. So we launched Blossom LGBT as a full wraparound service, which offered things like queer art workshops, queer performing art workshops. We've done comedy nights, taken over art galleries, even done things around. We had banks come in and talk about budgeting, writing CVs, because we really wanted to give the people the knowledge that they needed. Now, it was supposed to be just for LGBTQ plus people, but we found that really gay, particularly cis white gay men, and also generally, sorry, not cis white, gay men, and also cis white gay lesbians, didn't need our service very much. They came just to chat. It was the trans, the non-binary people, the gender non-conforming, people that didn't really know what they were yet, who really needed us and needed that extra space, the additional support. So it just naturally went in that direction that we became more trans focused. It was the right thing to do, and I stand by it. That not cutting out the LG, but focusing more on those who needed us most. So that's really where Blossom grew to, and now we have a team of about 25 volunteers. We run 4 weekly groups, including one for parents and carers of LGBTQ plus people. Too much. We do too much, basically.
Okay. So wait, 9 months, 50 episodes.
9 months and 50 episodes. Here we are.
Wow. Look at us. I'm proud of us.
Me too. Yeah, so, I mean, if there's something to be thankful for, it is that at least 2 of the customers confronted the gunman and beat the snot out of him.
Yeah.
And this could have been even worse.
Yeah.
So that was good. I don't, Colorado, man. Colorado was, the site of the 1999 shooting at Columbine High School.
Yeah.
The 2012 movie theater shooting in Aurora.
Yeah.
Colorado Springs was the site of a mass shooting at Planned Parenthood in November of 2015.
Yeah.
That left 3 dead. And also a birthday party last year that left 6 dead. There have been more than...
I don't know if I remember that one.
600 mass shootings in the United States so far this year. And that is an incident in which at least 4 people are shot, excluding the shooter. It is insane. It is insane. And, of course, so many of us, couldn't help but think back to Pulse.
Yeah.
And that nightmare, and thank God this was not at that level, that, this person was subdued, before we had another loss of life like that one. But, this is still, these are 5 people who were just out living their lives.
Yeah.
And, in a space that's supposed to be safe.
Right. That was one of the biggest, moments of lamentation, aside from the people who we lost. The fact that, this violation of what was considered to be a safe space. And it's the same thing with Pulse. It's like,
yeah,
that's what gay bars historically have been. safe spaces, a place to be yourself, free of the judging eyes of the outside world. And
made necessary by the outside world. Thank you.
That part. And it's like, what do we do when our safe spaces aren't so safe anymore? It's just like, I was thinking the same thing about like the dude that went into the church and shot people. Like, that's supposed to be a safe space.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's as if nothing is sacred anymore. Right. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and Queer Exhaustion.
Well, first of all right, I'm going to preface this by saying I have a little bit of an issue with the whole gay chicken concept.
Okay.
It started off as
that's what they used to call twinks, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess that is what, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gay chicken at one point was my favorite genre of porn, but...
That's a thing?
Yeah, okay. In the context of that...
Meaning
it's like,
twinks or no?
Well, you take two straight guys...
Oh, and they play chicken?
Right. It's like, they do gay shit until, like, and they get closer and closer together until one of them backs away.
Uh-huh.
But the really good ones, they never back away. So it's like...
So your 20s.
Yes.
Okay.
But no, it would be like,
I didn't know you like that, but I knew you.
Right? Does it bother you if I'm this close? No. This close? No. Put my hand here? No. Here? Like that until, they're blowing each other.
Yeah, I know where this goes.
Right.
Etc.
Anyway.
Etc.
Anyway. So that's what is typically referred to as gay chicken.
I've always wondered. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
It doesn't make you gay. It just feels good.
I told you about the time we overheard a couple of dude bros and one said to the other,
"No homo."
He said, "Dude, it's not gay. He gave me the blowjob."
Yeah, and they mean that.
I know.
Yeah, they mean that. Yeah.
I hope they stretched before they did that reach. You might hurt yourself.
No kidding.
Anyway.
If I had a nickel, we wouldn't have a mortgage.
I'd have at least $1.75.
So, this episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the warmth of kith and kin, or something. We're approaching Christmas, kids. Kirk Cameron is whining about libraries refusing his biblical books, events, while they will allow LGBTQ programs.
Speaking of people that are dying to be oppressed.
I'm just going to because I can't break out of the voice now. Yeah.
So Kirk Cameron.
Honey, once I open a bottle of white wine, it's over till it's empty.
That was good, bitch. That was good. Oh, God. Yes.
So you should tell this one while I compose myself.
Ooh. Ooh, that was good. Okay.
It had layers. They're all not good, but they're real.
Ooh, Kirk Cameron is claiming. Okay.
Back in your octave.
Oh, shit. Oh, my goodness. I was not ready for that. Okay. Okay, it's almost all gone. Okay. Kirk Cameron is claiming that public libraries nationwide have not taken up his offer to host story time for his new faith-centered children's book, As You Grow. My God, I'm going to choke on the irony as well.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Today we will be talking to our dear friend, Polly Reese. Polly is the host of Uncommon Good, the podcast. Hey, Polly. How are you, love?
Hi, ladies. I am so good and so happy to be with y'all today.
You're a lady now, Charles.
I know.
So I'm out with them doing the fancy theology term for this is mendicant, doing work like you're, if you've ever heard of like the Franciscan friars who take vows of poverty to be able to look after the sick person, the unsheltered person, the person in prison, the person who is alone, like that sort of work. So like we're actually like out in the snow with the people who live year-round on the Ben Franklin Parkway, making sure that they have tarps to keep their things dry, that they have clean socks and stuff and whatnot. So we go home. So I go home in scare quotes to the Airbnb. But instead of waking up at home, I wake up in the hospital to an ICU nurse saying, using, and also because hospitals are not trans safe spaces, using my dead legal name, Paul, you're in Jefferson Hospital. You were hit by a zip car while riding your bicycle across 11th Street. Please don't freak out.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine, Christmas Jammies, and a functioning furnace working overtime this week. So, yeah, let's talk about this jackass, George Santos.
Yes, a gay MAGA congressman-elect.
Maybe he's gay. I mean, the MAGA thing is the only thing that's certain right now.
Exactly.
And the fact that he is a congressperson-elect, but it seems like everything else he has said
has been a lie.
All of it.
My theory is that he's not even human. He's like 7 cats stacked on top of one another in a trench coat, because everything he says about himself is a lie.
I thought you liked cats.
I do.
Yeah, he has
raccoons.
So far, we know he made up a college education, a job history, a charity, and told lies about the Pulse shooting as well.
Yeah, he's told a series of egregious lies.
Yeah, the election of this asshat, who really shouldn't be allowed to be sworn in given all of this, did help to secure the slim majority in the House. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the promise of a new year. Is he an MMA fighter? Is that what he was?
Yeah, former MMA fighter and failed reality television personality, Andrew Tate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start this off by saying he started all of this.
I know.
He wrote a check his ass could not cash. So he decided out of nowhere to poke Greta Thunberg, who wasn't.
I know.
Wasn't bothering nobody. So he tweeted, "Hello, at Greta Thunberg. I have 33 cars. My Bugatti has a W16 8.0L quad turbo.
8 liter. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. My 2 Ferrari 812 Competizione have 6.5 liter V12s. This is just the start. Please provide your email address so I can send a complete list of my car collection and their respective enormous emissions." Mm-hmm. That's a lot of words for I want to show you my dick, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is with a photo of him gassing up one of his ugly ass cars. So then, because Greta's 19, she had time that day.
Well, good for her. Is she 19 now? Okay.
She's 19,
All
yes.
right.
Which doesn't make any of this less creepy on his part.
No, it really doesn't.
She responded, "Yes, please do enlighten me. Email me at smalldickenergy@getalife.com.
I love that.
Yes. Now,
and yeah,
let's add, alongside being a former MMA fighter and a failed reality television personality. He is a person who does not get humor.
And has very thin skin.
Very thin skin. So he responded.
Because that wasn't a burn, that was an inferno.
First of all. So he responded with a video tweet of him in this ridiculous looking robe, smoking a long cigar. Freud would love this dude. And he goes, bring me some pizza and don't recycle the boxes.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't recycle pizza boxes.
No, you don't, because the grease. But yeah,
it's beside the point. So, and with this video, he tweeted, "Thank you for confirming via your email address that you have a small penis at Greta Thunberg."
Yeah, okay.
"The world was curious, and I do agree you should get a life." Heart emoji. Like,
he thought he was being funny.
Comedy is hard.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and an art-filled day spent with friends, old and new. Also, apparently, 15th time's a charm for a GOP in chaos. Go ahead.
This was like some hippity hop stuff right here. So he said, House Democrats, he said, will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, inclusion over isolation, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over QAnon, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, xenial over xenophobia, yes we can over you can't do it, and zealous representation over zero-sum confrontation. He did that.
As with karaoke, I think I like your version better than the original. I think I do. This episode is brought to you by Pineapple Mimosas, because we're impressionable, and two exhausted queers wondering where all the adults are. And of course Murphy was Pose.
Yeah.
And Glee and a million things.
Nip Tuck.
He talked about, what's his name? Bonner. Jeffrey, what's his name?
Matt Bomber?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. He honored Michaela J. Rodriguez, who did win a Golden Globe for Pose, but it wasn't televised, and invited the audience to give her the standing ovation she deserved.
Yes,
for that, which was fabulous.
That was fabulous
for making history, which she did. Yeah, and then he went on to Niecy Nash Betts, who recently came out. We've talked about that before.
Right.
Came out, introduced her wife to the world, and was told her career would be over. And of course, her career is flourishing. And then he did turn his attention to Matt Bomer, who won for The Normal Heart.
He did The Normal Heart too?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then Jeremy Pope, who was nominated for his role in The Inspection and starred in Hollywood.
Which we won't talk about right now because we're saying good things.
We're saying good things, yeah. Hey, you know what? They all can't be home runs.
Exactly.
But, he continued to thank actors, producers, directors he's worked with who have, really helped to create kind of a sea change. It is hard to be an LGBTQ plus youth in America and, in fact, all over the world, then and now. And I have one word for you, Florida, Murphy said. You are often told you will never become anything and you have to hide your light to survive. But for those kids watching tonight, I offer up MJ and Billy and Niecy and Matt and Jeremy as examples of possibility. There is a way forward. Use them as your North Stars.
Yes.
The Carol Burnett Award honors someone based on their body of work and the lasting impact their television career achievements have had on both the industry and audiences. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and politicians everywhere who hope you don't know what words mean. Because they clearly don't.
Yeah, because soccer fans, I've seen them be very, very racist. Like, don't let the opposing team be full of brown people.
I mean, Charles, we're from Philly. We have Eagles fans. Are you saying soccer fans can be worse?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Not by a lot, but worse.
I'm just trying. I'm like, really?
I mean, if you start...
I mean, we know women. We know professional white women, personally, who have been expelled from games.
Yes. But not for saying homophobic or racist things.
No.
Just for generally talking shit and being an obnoxious sports
they're
fan.
shit talkers. So maybe that is the difference. They're shit talkers.
Right.
Not necessarily homophobic, racist shit talkers, but boy, can they talk smack.
Yes.
And get removed from a game.
Yeah, they consider
I think they get removed more from baseball games because there are more of them and they're less expensive than Eagles games.
Right.
I think they figure out how to keep their mouth shut at an Eagles game.
Right. Yeah, they see it as a point
I'll have to ask.
of pride to get kicked out of the Phillies games.
Yeah, and then pictures of them outside the stadium. It's kind of funny.
I'm like, okay.
If it wasn't so sad. These are adults. These are educated adults.
Child.
Like, what is wrong with you? And they're like, just stop. It's fun.
Don't get me started.
This episode is brought to you by two exhausted queers in a world gone mad.
So Eminem's yanks polarizing candy mascots to appease Tucker Carlson and far right.
Uh-huh.
After conservatives attacked M&M's for slightly redesigning some of their signature mascot characters to be more inclusive, the beloved candy brand has announced it is taking an indefinite pause from the spokes candies and replacing them with actress and comedian Maya Rudolph. Now, I have
last I checked,
no complaint about Maya Rudolph.
I this feels subversive to me because Maya is a representation of intersectionality.
This is true. Very much so.
America Let's Talk began a statement the company posted to its social media. In the last year, we've made some changes to our beloved spokes candies. We weren't sure if anyone would even notice, and we definitely didn't think it would break the internet. But now we get it. Even a candy's shoes can be polarizing. Which was the last thing M&M's wanted, since we're all about bringing people together. Therefore, we have decided to take an indefinite pause from the spokes candies. In their place, we are proud to introduce a spokesperson America can agree on, you think. The beloved Maya Rudolph. We are confident Ms. Rudolph will champion the power of fun to create a world where everyone feels they belong. Conservatives began attacking the brand after it announced the release of candy packages with only the female characters, green, brown, and the new purple. The limited edition packages show the three female characters upside down with the message, supporting women flipping the status quo. A Chiron on Fox News on the show also noted that green and brown had once held hands in a 2015 ad and could be lesbians.
They're candy.
Tuckums, who, famously lost his shit because the green M&M was redesigned to be less sexy, called the new packaging woke and said the green M&M is now a lesbian, maybe?
I hate everyone and everything.
And, quote, there's also a plus-sized, obese purple M&M, he said, referring to the new purple character who is supposed to be a peanut M&M.
Which are bigger than the regular ones because peanuts are larger than just the chocolate. And the yellow one, which was also a peanut M&M, which was, usually portrayed as male, no one had shit to say about that. So again, it comes down to these people, do they consider these M&Ms, these anthropomorphic chocolate candies, fuckable?
Ben Shapiro, another jackass, angrily agreed. Women, do you feel represented now because of the green, purple, and brown M&Ms? On the M&M package that you're guzzling down lonely in your apartment with your wine and your cats? How's that going for you?
Either way, they're not fucking you.
I was going to say, friend, if you were the only dick available, yeah, I'm sorry, but M&M's, wine, and cats sounds far preferable. This episode is brought to you by a course of Paxlovid and good friends who save your life when you need them the most.
I will always go back to my question. If we are all made in God's image and God is infallible, then please to explain why the male G-spot is located in the ass.
I know, right? I know where it is.
So, you know, you can't have it both ways, so...
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously you can.
You can have it several ways. And I there's no question in my mind that this pastor is. But yeah, make everybody sign that, because that will, I don't know, do something.
The gay thoughts will go away if he gets the entire parishioners'
he did say
signature.
He and his church don't hate members of the sexual revolution. They may think of us as their enemies, but that is not how we think of them.
Uh-huh.
To anyone watching this who disagrees with the biblical message on sexuality, I want you to know that we love you. Oh, honey, we know because you pay us. And God does too. This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and our consistent sports ball ambivalence on Super Bowl Sunday.
So, Nyack Middle School in New York was treated to a special lunch for the first day of Black History Month.
February 1st.
February 1st.
What'd they get?
Fried chicken, waffles, and watermelon.
Fried chicken, waffles, and watermelon.
Yeah.
In honor of Black History Month? Is that...
We'll see.
They forgot collard greens and potato salad.
Well, see, here's the thing. At first...
And cornbread. They could have just gone and, I mean, you know, you're going to do it.
At first...
Fried chicken and watermelon.
I was going to give them some grace.
Okay.
Because I'm like, you know, they might have their menus planned months in ahead.
No bullshit.
Wait, hold on. Let me give them the grace that I was going to give them.
I'll do it.
I'm going to try. I had to start. So it could just so happen, because, you know, chicken and waffles is no longer just for black people. Like it's been gentrified.
It was never just for black people.
I know.
It's a Southern
like
thing.
You don't necessarily have to think of black people when you think of chicken and waffle.
You do not. Or watermelon for the matter.
Watermelon.
Yeah, I don't.
So it could have just been a coincidence. You know, they apologized for the unfortunate situation. Aramark issued an apology and said that the lunch's timing was inappropriate.
No shit.
And was not meant to be a, quote, cultural meal.
What was it meant to be?
That's a good ass question. Now, like I said, I tried to give them the grace of saying, well, maybe it was just a fucked up coincidence. Until it came out that this was not the first time such ill timing showed up on their menus.
Really?
Yes.
Color me shocked.
Yes. Apparently, in April of 2019, NYU cut ties with Aramark after it served ribs, collard greens, and Kool-Aid during Black History Month in 2018. And see...
Wait, what?
You heard me.
Red or... No.
In my head, it's red.
In my head, it's red.
And see, it's the Kool-Aid that makes it racist.
Well,
because again, it could have been like, oh, we're having barbecue day, and collard greens go with ribs.
They
go
do.
to any barbecue joint, you can get collard greens as a side with your rib. Doesn't have to be anything with anything.
And even mac and cheese.
Right. But once you add Kool-Aid to it, motherfucker, I see you.
Right. Right. Bridge too far.
Yeah.
You went too far.
I tried to work with your dumb ass.
There is now a theme.
Right, exactly. Now you just playing in our faces. And fuck you.
This episode is brought to you by Decanted Jug Wine and the tenacity of queer joy being drugged through cishet nonsense.
I was perusing TikTok today, and one of the entries was this young black man just looked at the camera and said, "Google Negro spirituals, Apple Music, just do it." And that was the entirety of the video. So you know me.
You just did it.
I just did it. So when you go to the Google machine and you type in Negro spirituals, Apple Music, you know, you get some of the expected entries like Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child by Harry Belafonte. Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, like Louis Armstrong. But that's at the bottom of the list. You know what's at the top?
I do not.
Nuck If You Buck by Lil Scrappy. Nuck If You Buck means like, if you want to be all like rowdy about it, come on, let's do it. We ain't all talk here. We're like, you gonna do something or what? Like, that's Nuck If You Buck.
Traditionally sung in African American churches throughout.
It is not. I just had the image of like the robes and
yeah, I was picturing a choir doing Nuck If You Buck, and I don't think that's a thing at all.
Sopranos, Nuck If You Buck. Also included in this list, Swag Surfing.
Oh, I'm sure I've heard that one.
By Fast Life Youngsters.
Swag Surfing.
Yes.
I'm picturing the church hats kind of swaying.
They Know by Shorty Low. I Think I Love Her by Gucci Mane.
What?
Yeah.
And these are all listed as
Negro motherfucking spirituals.
You added the motherfucking part, didn't you?
I did. Yes. I did. Although
might as well.
Right.
Because yeah. What is the point of this story? We all really are like it's lost. Everything is lost. Like, where are we going with this?
I couldn't keep it to myself. It's basically what it is. I was like, what? Who's this?
The fact that someone Googled this in the first place and then took the time to make a TikTok out of it is like...
Like, I honestly don't know how to feel about this. Because, you know, Negro spirituals were meant to, you know, pull you out of the torment that your body was going through and help you move on. It was also used as code to help enslave people to escape. Like, you know, wade in the water was a code. You know, references to the drinking gourd were about like the Big Dipper in the sky, follow the Big Dipper, things like that. Nuck If You Motherfucking Buck. I'm sorry. That's disrespectful on so many levels. It is not spiritual. I'm sorry. I don't care what you say.
It seems that the genre has been expanded by Apple Music.
No, I will not allow it.
Perhaps inappropriately.
Yes. Somebody at Apple Music needs to ask me. It's basically what I'm saying. Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared, executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.